I don't know why I feel compelled to say this. Feels a little direct, but that seems to be what's coming up. So there's nothing to understand, and you're already enlightened. That's pretty much it, right? And that's pretty close to being true. Not exactly true, but it's pretty close to being true. Because like anything else that's spoken is never going to be absolutely true. So the most anybody can do by speaking about it is to point to something that is true. But what is true can never be expressed in words. Yes? No, maybe. You know, this is Lao Tzu 2,500 years ago said that at the beginning of the Tao Te Ching, right? But the reason for that is quite simple, just because all words are concepts, right? All words represent something at best, something, in, let's call it reality. But as themselves, they don't only represent that. They're never the thing itself. The word water isn't the same as what's inside of that. It represents that. It's a way to communicate about that. But you can't drink the word. It's not the actual thing, right? So any word is conceptual. And so any string of words is still conceptual. So anything I say won't be entirely true. Hopefully it'll point in the direction of something that's actually true. We can say something about, there's nothing to understand and you're already enlightened, and that may be true in one sense, but does it really do you any good? Right? Right, because, it's either our direct experience or it's a belief. Right, so we can say, well, so-and-so said I'm already enlightened, so I must be, so I'll just act like that, right? But it's actually true in one sense that what we truly essentially are is who we truly essentially are, and we couldn't possibly be anything other than that. So that's as close to being true as anything I can say. But we live in this world of constructs that we've adopted over the course of a lifetime that convince us that we are separate. I am this separate identity center. I call it me or I, right? Self. That's what I am. That's what nearly everybody believes. It has a functional purpose. But waking up to our essential nature basically sees that way of identifying ourself as being separate, a separate me that thinks and a separate me that does things, is not actually the case. Feels like it. To say otherwise seems almost silly, right? It's only when we actually go looking for that entity, let's say just the entity that thinks the thoughts that we have in our head. Thoughts clearly occur, no question, right? Thoughts happen. So the only question is there someone thinking those thoughts, or do the thoughts just happen? Good question, huh? So what's our direct experience? Not what we assume to be happening or what we were taught happens. This isn't a biology question. It's not a psychology question. It's not a religious question. It's just a question about thoughts that arise into our consciousness. Did we choose to think about that? Or did we find ourselves just start thinking about this? And then we thought about that for some period of time. And then we find ourselves thinking about something else. Usually on and on and on and on, right, through the day. So I'm not talking about functional thinking, things that we get paid to do at work. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when we don't really have anything better to do and the mind is just talking to itself, telling itself old stories, justifying the past, airing old grievances, expressing hopes and fears, all that kind of stuff. And when we really start watching that without judgment, just really watching it as it sort of unfolds, as if you were sort of in the, spectator's booth and, this movie was playing, maybe the audio, maybe the video went with it, but, there was there was this thoughts happening. And when we can just sit back and watch that without trying to manage it or agree with it or trying to direct it or justify it or believe this but not believe that, looking for the needle in the haystack, the thought that will make everything okay. When we're not doing any of that, when we're just watching whatever it is that's coming through the mind. And when we do that over an extended period of time, we can begin to see the repetitive quality of it, right? You ever notice that? Like thoughts that you've thought, 5,000 times before. Memories that we play over and over. Sort of uncomfortable situations that we wish went differently. Guilt, shame, regret. They're not happening now, right? They're a memory sort of brought up into current memory, taking it off the hard drive, putting it up into current memory, and then we experience that. But meanwhile, while that's all happening, there's something that remains present that notices that. We may not remember that, but if we gain just a little bit of separation, like just the willingness to step back and notice this thought stream without judgment about it, without hope or justifying or anything like that, just watching it non-judgmentally, remaining present for, then we can begin to see the patterns, the conditioned patterns that we think about things, how we see that over and over again. And we might notice that we can see that thoughts have a lifespan. I mean, they have a beginning. At some point we begin thinking of a certain, let's say, thought subject. And we begin thinking about that, and maybe it lasts a few seconds, or maybe it lasts a few hours, who knows? It arises and sort of has a lifespan, and then sooner or later, we don't know exactly how, it sort of recedes. Maybe we think we make the decision to start thinking about something else, but, where did that thought to make that decision come from? Again, arising out of who knows where, right? All we can say for sure, so we're just going on what we can say with certainty, all we can say for sure is that this thought now arises, and now that's what's occupying my consciousness, and then sooner or later, we find ourselves thinking about something else. I mean, that's our experience, right? So we can think of, no, but it's me thinking, right? But if it's me thinking, then I'm responsible. Yes? If I'm the one doing the thinking, then I'm responsible for what my thoughts are. All the crazy ones, all the bitter ones, all the judgmental ones, all the petty ones, all of it. Right? All the good ones too. But you can't pick and choose like, no, it's me. I'm the one responsible for all the good ones, the noble thoughts. And then, I don't know, the devil over there is making me think all that other stuff. Sort of outsourcing the problem. But it's still just an assumption. Who exactly is this me that's thinking the thoughts? What's our actual direct experience? Thoughts arise, they stick around, and then they leave, and another thought arises. Where's the me? Where's the me that's thinking the thoughts? Like some backstage manager saying, okay, you're next, go. It's your turn to think this. But that would just be another thought, right? Another construct. What we do find is just this, what we were pointing to in the first 10 minutes, what we do find is just this capacity to be aware, right? And so we're aware of the next thought, we're aware of the breath, we're aware of my feet on the ground, we're aware. But what exactly is the characteristic of that capacity to be aware? What can we say about it? Just aware, right? Just it's sort of this space that's able to be present for and have a knowingness about whatever this organism is sensing: thoughts, feelings, sight, sounds, touch. Where's the me? As an individual entity, right? Because what we do find is we find the thoughts arising, and we find that what they arise within is this openness, this capacity, this spaciousness, consciousness, awareness. Right? That's our direct experience, right? So that's the recognition of that is the reason for making the statement that we are already enlightened. Because that's what that recognition is, what enlightenment is. The recognition is that this spaciousness that we could also call, it's been called original nature or empty mind, or we can call it all kinds of things, right? The unborn, we call it lots of things, Buddha nature. But it's also just this capacity that we all have originally, already, in equal measure, right? You, me, and the Buddha, same, right? It's just awareness. So everything other than that, everything that we tell ourselves to convince ourselves that what we are isn't what we can directly experience, it's something that we have been taught. And what we have been taught is you're separate. You are a separate being apart from the rest of existence. And there's a downside to that, right? Because, it's sort of, self-enhancing. Americans like that, independent, strong, I can do this. But life has a way of sort of, it takes a few decades maybe, but it has a way of sort of convincing us otherwise, right? Might take a few years, few illnesses, few failures, whatever. Life is a way of convincing us that we're not invincible, which is a good thing, right? It takes something almost that dramatic to be willing to consider the possibility that maybe what this is about is really understanding that it is life living through us rather than me living in this big wide world and trying to squeeze as much excitement, happiness out of it as possible over the course of a lifetime. Which is what most people spend their life doing. But when we can relax into this sense of just the spaciousness within which life happens. I mean, it's actually this knowingness, this, I don't mean mental knowing, I mean just the capacity to be present for, to be aware of, just that. I'm not talking about brain function necessarily. I'm just talking about wherever that originates from, just this capacity like we have in this moment, everybody, just to know that, okay, I'm sitting in this room, listening to somebody jabber on, it's just, right? Capacity to be aware. So just that awareness. But it's that same awareness that convinces us that what I am is this body. How do I know that? I'm aware of it. And I've been taught that that's what I am. I'm not saying, the body's a beautiful thing, amazing thing, can do all kinds of things. So we're not denying the existence of the body, but what we're doing is sort of teasing apart what we truly are from what we appear to be. So this, the word that's typically applied to this kind of inquiry might be spirituality, having to do with spirit, things that are, beyond the material plane. That's what we're talking about. But what we're discarding is the baggage of spirituality that has, all the metaphysical beliefs and all the the do's and don'ts and all of the structures and ceremonial things and dress and belief systems, and that's what we're setting aside. And what we're keeping is just the direct experience that we don't need anybody's say-so about it, right? It's something that we all have direct access to. We can try to do it on the outside. So-and-so said this, so I'll believe that, and then maybe I'll feel better. But belief is never that solid, not in the long term. What is solid is when we can experience something directly for ourselves. That's undeniable. We don't have to ask anybody else's, we don't have to ask anybody else, is it true? When we stumble upon it, there's no question, right? It's because it's our direct experience. It's not what we think we might be, it's not what we believe, it's not what we hope. Just the discovery of what we actually are. And what this that we're pointing to actually is beyond this material world. It's not of this same world. It doesn't have a form. So we're talking about you can talk about the material and the spiritual, the form, world of form, and the formless. Matter and consciousness. So it's helpful to see, tease apart that distinction, to see that this awareness is like the field within which all of this happens. And then we can relax enough to be okay with what's actually appearing within that field, what's happening to the body, what's happening to our circumstances, and enjoy that, right? Knowing that it's not what we truly are. Yes? If the identity shifts from feeling like it's me as a separate, independent being apart from existence to this sense of spaciousness that is not in any way separated from life, but within which life happens. Right? A different feeling. You do. And then the question is, about oneness, as a separate individual entity, then the question is, well, how can I experience sort of oneness, sort of being at home in the world, comfortable in my own skin? How can I experience that, oneness with the divine, union with God, however you want to phrase it, right? How do I experience that? It sounds like a magnificently noble acquisition for the personal self. How can I, as a separate self, realize union with the divine? That'd feel really good. I bet it does. Right? You can sort of feel the sort of egoic ambition in that. Right? That's what I want. That's okay. But we don't actually get there as a result of ambition, because ambition implies that I'm not that now, but if I play my cards right and the divine glances my way, then I'll rise to some higher level, right? But all of that's founded on, I'm not that now. I'm separate from life, me. How do I get from here to there? But the reality is you're not separate from life. Couldn't possibly be. Where you have life here, like what sort of alternative universe do we imagine we live in? That's separate from life. Even on a purely ecological level, it's not possible. We still need to eat food that's, grown by the soil and the sun and the plants and everybody. But what we can also look at is something even more fundamental than that, and that again comes back to this innate capacity that we all already have that notices everything that appears in whatever it is that we're doing. We look at the body, its appearance within consciousness. Thinking a thought, noticing that, an appearance in consciousness, thought form. We listen to the truck, another sensation appearing within consciousness. So we can identify with each of those objects, or we can step back and notice that what all of that has in common, the only way that we can ever experience any of that ever knowingly know that any of that's happening, thought, body, car, is this capacity to be aware, and thankfully we're already that. What's to attain? That's the basis for the statement, you're already enlightened. You know, hopefully we have the humility to know, well, that may be true, but it doesn't do me much good unless I realize that for myself. Great and perfect. But it's good to know that it's already the case, right? That's like a lot easier than saying you're not that now, but if you live 100,000 more lifetimes, then maybe. But you have to earn it, right? I mean, maybe even on a conceptual level, it's of some comfort to hear someone say that that's already the case. You can't be anything else. Great. Okay. So that's maybe enough of an encouragement to actually wonder if that's true. It doesn't do it actually does less than not any good. It's actually a negative benefit to believe something like that. Just as a belief, like, well, so-and-so said I'm already enlightened, so hey, I might as well sit on my couch and watch some more TV. It's still a case, right? Still spaciousness watching that TV. But it's actually more fun to live from that place where that's actually one's lived experience. And the good news is that's possible. It's not lifetimes, it's possible at any moment to recognize what we truly are. That's the good news. Not a question of belief, not a question of merit, surprisingly. Not a question of karma. Doesn't have anything to do with what you did 10 years ago or last week, or it's what we are. So it's just literally that recognition which is possible at any moment. All it requires is just to, just for a moment to lay down all the things that we think we know about how everything works. Because it's already the case. And what's surprising is when we get a glimpse of it, is the recognition that it's been there all along. It was never absent. It was like, it feels really good, you're really happy, and you're also a little embarrassed, right? Because it's like, I've been looking for sort of something of abiding peace for years, and it was already present the whole time. How did I miss that for so many years? So it feels good. It's a little embarrassing, So usually how we deal with that is laughter. Right? It's sort of like a good joke. It sort of confuses the mind enough that our only response is sort of belly laughter. And the other thing that I said at the outset is that there's literally nothing to understand. Right? The mind really likes to understand things. It likes to understand things because it gives it a sense of control. Like, I've got this. I know how life works. I can talk about it. I can outline it. I can, I have these beliefs. I'm pretty sure life is responsive to that. But from the perspective of this awareness, what's to understand? just aware. We can be mystified by it, but we'll never get to the point of being able to say, yeah, this is what awareness is like, and I'll write a 2-page essay on what awareness is. So, all I can do is like talk in circles around it for, some period of time, trying to point to it from different directions. But it in itself is just this innate capacity. There's nothing much to say about it. I mean, you can say, well, there's a sense of aliveness to it. Okay. Sort of like a mirror-like quality, mirroring whatever's present. Okay. Big. Okay. Doesn't tell us a whole lot, right? It's sort of a minimalist description. But it's just, so in itself it doesn't really have any attribute. It doesn't have any memory. The memory comes from the mind. It doesn't have any judgment. It's not blaming anybody. It's not condemning ourselves. It's not doing any of that. All of that's happening in the mind. The awareness is what is aware of what the mind is telling us. Right? So when we can step back into this, well, in Zen they called it original nature, right? What we were from the get-go, far back as we can remember, before we got all conditioned and forgot all about it, So, and that sense of presence feels personal, feels as intimate as I possibly can get, looking within, and yet there's a sense of it's not personal. It's not an awareness that I'm generating. It's awareness that is living through these forms. And then that's the freedom of it. Then the personality will be as it is. It's not a problem. The more time we spend sort of in this state of non-judgmental presence, openness, we'll tend to act and say things in, a somewhat, more self-aware kind of way. That's true. But, all the quirky habits and personality styles and preferences and whether we eat meat or not or drink coffee or not, or all of that's not, it's just preferences of this body. That's all it is. Not a requirement. And these bodies have all been thoroughly conditioned, so they will have preferences, they will have a personality. They will have skills. They will be able to go to work and earn a living. The difference is we won't spend 80% of our time sort of going through these psychological things in our head about the past or the future. It's just as it is. And when we can be present for whatever's happening now, then we can be present for whatever's happening in the next moment and the next. It's a much, much freer way of inhabiting this world and much closer to the truth of what we actually are.